Good afternoon, at least here in New Orleans. It's about 1 o'clock on Tuesday, the 15th, I believe. We were expecting to have a hurricane, but apparently we're not going to now. Of course, thoughts are obviously with those that are getting the hurricane. Luckily, it has been downgraded. The downside is apparently there's going to be a lot of flooding along the Gulf Coast, Mississippi, Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle. So thinking gently about all those people who are going to be dealing with that. Once again, this is, I guess, the third one that we've missed so far this hurricane season. Hi, I'm coming to you now. You may have noticed I have yet a different background again, if you're observant or you care. And so now, just to keep you updated on my life, since I'm exposing myself here on videos, I have moved again. I moved everything out of my house last week and moved most of it into storage. Some of it is here with me at my mother's place now, where Vivian and I are temporarily residing until we return to California, which we're thinking is going to be at the beginning of October, but I don't plan my life anymore. I just let things happen and roll with it. So watch this space. I don't know. Maybe who knows where I'll be coming to you from. Anyway, along those lines, one of the things that I've really been thinking a lot about over the last couple of weeks is a term called coherence. And a lot of you may have heard the term something is coherent if, for instance, in reference to writing, right? Something, you have a coherent piece of writing or a coherent essay if it hangs together as a unified whole, right? If it's something that so that's the idea, is that it's unified, that it's something that's whole, that hangs together with the things around it, right? So when I'm talking about coherence, I'm talking about really sort of a slightly different version or a slightly different take on the idea of being present. But I actually like the idea of being in coherence better. I think, for one thing, this whole idea of like being in the now and being present and all that has gotten a bit cliched. I think it's become sort of overused. And I think when that happens, people start to sort of check out. They hear that term and then if they don't really know what it means, or it just feels kind of new agey and weird, or it doesn't really speak to them in a particular way. I really like the idea of being coherent because I feel that it's more comprehensive, let's say. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about being in unity, being in tune, really, with, I think that's a better way of putting it, being in tune with whatever's going on inside you and whatever's going on around you, at any given time, right? And the reason that one of the reasons that this has been coming up for me and that I've been thinking about it a lot has been, since my dog came out of reform school, he was having some issues. We've been going on long work walks, right? And that means that the normal walk that I would take, where I would listen to music and I would skip or, whatever, has changed. I now walk my dog with intent, and that intent is to help him control his impulses, for one thing, like his impulse to lunge at people, which was not good, his impulse to chase lizards and squirrels. And since we have so few of those here, it wasn't really an issue. I mean, he nearly took me down. He actually did take me down a couple of times in California, and he nearly took me down a couple of times in the park here before he went to reform school. So I'd see a lizard, and he has apparently what is known as a very strong prey drive, which is not a term that I'd heard before. And the idea is that, he sees prey and he goes for it. So, and he's constantly, look on the lookout for it. And, if you've ever walked through Audubon Park and noticed how many lizards are around and how many squirrels are around, you can imagine that it was a pretty dicey walk for me, trying to avoid people, dogs, other dogs, lizards and squirrels was, it was fun. So we have very different walks now, but something that I started to notice, right, is, we take about a 4-mile walk. That we're out there for about an hour or more, right? And when you're trying to like stay in your senses, stay present, stay in the moment, whatever, stay in the now. And I usually, as you know from earlier videos, I usually talk about that in terms of like one way to do that, one tool that you can use is to drop into your senses. And that is something that I do every day, all the time, constantly, right? As I think about that and I check back in with myself when I find myself getting lost, right? That's what I do, check back in. So on these walks, part of my checking in is keeping track of whether or not Ollie, my Shepherd Husky mix, is focused on walking. Is he doing what he's supposed to be doing, right? Or is he starting to like check out the dog that's over there? Or is he starting to check out the lizard that's over there? Or the lizard that just ran under my foot? Or the squirrel that's climbing the tree? Or the person that's coming? I have to stay completely in tune with him all the time to see what he's doing because I need to check him when he starts to get distracted, right? So that means that I have to stay hyper-focused as well as in order to keep him hyper-focused so that we don't start having problems again, because that's part of the training is keeping him focused and keeping him in the moment of the walk, right? That we're doing, this is what we're doing right now. We are walking. You are paying attention to me. When I stop, you stop. When I tell you to heal, you heal. When I, tell you it's okay. When I to go potty, you go potty. Like everything is, in lockstep, right? So what I started to really notice, so I knew this intellectually, right, going into this, that I had to stay focused and keep him focused. But it has really come home to me doing this over the last couple of weeks, that the moment I start to get distracted, he gets distracted, right? That when I start to go off and I'm not focusing on him and I'm not focusing and I'm going into the vortex about one thing or another, the minute I do that, when I start to do that, he loses focus, right? And he starts to get distracted. I notice him starting to pull on the leash a little bit because he's checking out the dog that just walked by, or he's doing whatever that I'm supposed to be watching for. And that's what sort of really started me thinking about this, about being in coherence. So I need to be in coherence with Ollie at any given moment during our walks. I need to be in coherence with all the things around me. I need to be aware of the squirrels and the birds and the lizards and the other dogs and the people and the breeze and the trees and the grass and the dirt and the water and the river, right? And that has been a really amazing lesson for me in terms of that, the power of coherence and of really being in tune with everything around you, right? And so I really have to thank Ollie for this experience of doing this. And that has also had other thoughts is, okay, so what does it mean to be in, so I know what it means to be in coherence then when I'm walking my dog and I'm in that situation, right? So what does it mean to be in coherence, or what, so what are the things, actually one of the things that it made me think about is what takes you out of coherence? Like, so then I began to notice like what takes me out of coherence, right? So what takes me out of coherence is anxiety, fear, anger, frustration, right? All of those things take me out of coherence, right? That's when I drop out. And it's funny because when I feel happy and joyful, I've noticed, or peaceful and calm, is generally when I am in coherence with everything around me, right? But then I began to think, okay, but there aren't any bad emotions, right? We need to go through anger. It doesn't mean that we have to like reach out and attack someone in our anger, but we can feel anger and we can process anger within ourselves. And we get angry. We're human. It happens, right? And sometimes we actually do process it against other people, which we hopefully apologize for afterwards and hopefully don't do anything really terrible in the meantime. But we're human. We do what we do, right? And we do our best, but we do what we do. And you get frustrated and you get angry and you get depressed and you get fearful. So are you supposed to be, I'm starting thinking, okay, so I know these are things that take me out of being in coherence, right? So then I can see, all right, so I'm feeling anxious about this thing, or I'm in the vortex about this thing that's pulling me out of coherence. What do I want to do about that? How do I want to think about that? And then I began to wonder, okay, but am I actually out of coherence if I embrace this fear for a moment, if I think about this? Because this is what's coming up for me, right? This is part of what's happening. So if I allow that to be, that sadness, that fear, that anger, whatever, because we don't want to pretend it's not there, right? So then I realized, okay, so it's not necessarily that I'm out of coherence when these things happen, but these are the things that are nagging at me. These are the things that are coming up for me. So I need to notice them. I need to pay attention to them. And I need to see what I can do. You know, I mean, that's one of the questions, right? About when you're anxious about something, what can I do? Can I do something about this? Is this something I can change? Is there something I can shift here that might make me feel better about it? Even just writing down a plan if the worst thing happens or whatever it is. And so that's, you know, I'm going to leave you with that. And I would love to hear what you think, but I am still thinking about that, right? I'm thinking about how do I notice that? And then what do I do with it? How does that change? And is it simply by noticing it that it changes? And that also brings us to like a scientific idea, right? Because what is it? I should look this up before I talk about it. But I know that there is, I think it's in physics, they talk about that the moment that something is observed in physics, like an atom's movement, right, that fundamentally changes it. Simply the act of noticing it, right? So I guess that's maybe our answer. The act of noticing that you're in fear, the act of noticing that you're anxious and being able to name it and say, okay, here I am. This is where I am. Acknowledging it, not vortexing about it. There's a difference between vortexing about it and noticing it and owning it and saying, okay, I'm going through this. There's a difference, right? And maybe I need to contemplate that difference a little bit more and get back to you. So maybe that's what I'll do. I'm going to go ahead and end this now because we're already 12 minutes in. So if you're still with me, thank you for indulging my musings today. And just notice coherence. Think about coherence. Let that filter through and see if it has any resonance for you, or if there's anything that takes you, you know, notice today what takes you out of coherence, what takes you out of a pleasant spot, right? What takes your focus away from whatever it is that you're doing right now. See what happens with that. Just observe it. Okay? So, best to all of you who may be affected by the current storm, and God knows the fires in California are beyond frightening. Personally, I prefer water and wind. At least you get a little bit of warning. Wow, just so much going on. Anyway, big love to all of you. Thank you. Take care. And I hope to see or hear from you soon. Bye. Now I gotta turn it off.